Welcome, class, to this lecture. We are still recording the first ideal, and the reflection with this section is the wedding day reflections in the bridal chamber. So let's look at verse 15. How beautiful you are, my darling, how beautiful you are. Your eyes are like doves. How handsome you are, my beloved, and so pleasant. Indeed, our couch is luxuriant. The beams of our houses are cedars, our rafters, cypresses. With this reflection, the newly married couple moves into the wedding chamber and spend their first night together. Using raisin for darling, Solomon initiates the discourse of the wedding night by describing his infatuation with her beauty, especially as centered around her eyes. Shulamit responds to Solomon by describing the beauty she sees before those eyes. She responds, "How handsome you are, my beloved." She then proceeds to describe the beauty of the bridal chamber that Solomon constructed for the occasion. The cedars and cypresses are not native to Jerusalem, but come from the north in Galilee, the area of Shulamit's home. Solomon had this kind of wood brought down, and he structured the bridal chamber to be like what it was to be like and to remind her of her home. Solomon created an atmosphere that would give it a sense of being in a world apart, a world unique and all their own, to be enjoyed by themselves alone. Verse 1 of chapter 2 reads, I am the rose of Sharon, the lily of the valleys, like a lily among the thorns. So is my darling among the maidens. Seeing the trouble Solomon had gone to create the special effects, Shulamit feels a sense of unworthiness and compares herself to a simple country flower, the rose, that is an autumn crocus, common in the plain of Sharon, and to a common lily found in the valleys of Israel. The word translated thorns is not the thorn of a flower stem such as a rose. Rather, it refers to the thorn plant or thorn bushes, which are plentiful. And you can see references to that in 2 Kings 14:9. But Solomon interrupts Shulamit to respond, a simple, common flower? Yes, but in that very simplicity of gentleness and innocence and beauty, Shulamit surpasses all the women, just as the lily of the valley surpasses the thorn bushes all around it. Let's read verses 3 through 5. Like an apple tree among the trees of the forest, so is my beloved among the young men. In his shade I took great delight and sat down, and his fruit was sweet to my taste. He has brought me to his banquet hall, and his banner over me is love. Sustain me with raisin cakes, refresh me with apples, because I am lovesick. Again, Shulamit speaks and begins to describe their first sexual union. In verse 3, it describes the beginning of the sexual union by foreplay until sexual passion is aroused. Apples in the ancient world were erotic symbols, and this is a usage here. In verse 4, sexual passion arises because of the foreplay in the previous verse until they become delirious with it. This is the meaning of the expression banquet hall. In verse 5, the passion has reached the stage where it requires satisfaction through the sexual act itself. Both apples and raisin cakes were symbols of sexual passions. Hence, she calls for these to satisfy the passion. So in essence, having been aroused through foreplay, she now seeks satisfaction by the sexual act itself. That is the sense of the statement, I am lovesick. Verses 6 and 7. Let his left hand be under my head, and his right hand embraced me. I adjure you, O daughters of Jerusalem, by the gazelles or by the hinds of the field, that you do not arouse or awaken my love until she pleases. The answer to Shulamit's request comes in verse 6, with the first sexual act, as Solomon embraces his wife and takes her to himself, and the marriage is consummated. They have become one. This answers her request for satisfaction in verse 6. This experience gives rise to Shulamit's admonition in verse 7. The word arouse means to satisfy or to fulfill. Because of her experiences in verses 5 and 6, she admonishes that sexual passions must never be aroused until they can be also satisfied. Otherwise, they will lead to frustration. Sexual passion must be handled with utmost care and should not be aroused before its proper time. And that ends this